First two sets of our international business track, the IBT at the EMS Expo, were about the industry. The industry, we had a clear vision and we shared some of the same ideas, although there was some controversy. In the second set about the future of the workplace, well, I don't think that we all have been very satisfied with the different views on the future, and there was missing something about the worker, about work itself. We were really stuck in functionality, technology, and I had a little bit the feeling that we're missing men, that we're missing employees, that we're missing ourselves. And that's the reason why we have now the third session. And the third session is about the information society. The changes we face today about our complete life. And I believe it is a very interesting time because there has never been such a period in history where in 40, 50 years happened so much as it happened never before. And we could be very glad that we are part of this. And I have to share this, some of my friends here on the panel. And first of all, I'd like to introduce again Pamela Doyle from Fujitsu, who brings in the discussion a point of view which is no technology. By the way, it's a new interpretation of the acronym ECM, because if we don't think about ECM in terms of technology, we can use ECM for enterprise change management, and that's the important thing. So let's go to EM and use ECM for enterprise change management. Second friend I want to put in here on the panel is Richard Medina. We have seen Richard for 2 times. It will be interesting again. And he will give us the vision what really will come, safe bets. This is for this year. We just had an election in Germany. We know about these bets. And long shots. And if we think about our industry, long shots in regard to preservation and archiving mean 100 years, 300 years, and who knows what is in 300 years but Richard Medina. The third who will contribute with a small presentation on the future of the information society is Luba Tacik. And his point of view is we are not talking about future at all, it's already here. Future is not existing, past is not existing, and present is only a second we're just talking. So it will be very interesting how you see future being already upon us. Well, due to the fact that we only have 3 small presentations, we have the chance to leverage the knowledge of all the other friends. And I feel we don't have enough chairs. So one of you who feels strong asks the others to move and brings up his own chair. Who is volunteering? Andrew, are you volunteering to bring your own chair? Yeah? Well, Andrew, representing AIM International as international partner, probably you can move a little bit, of the DMS Expo show, always has a small book with figures. Gerd Krutter gave us some insight into the topic how innovation is driven, and we will try to discuss this separately from all these companies, because innovation is still in our heads and what we do with it. And we have my friend Mika. You are now allowed to bring your academic views what your students think about the future of information. And what do they tell you if you talk to them about the information society? Pick your microphone. What's the vision of your students, how society will look alike when they're grown up like us?
There are many points I could talk about, but one thing, especially younger students, are expecting that the state is about to serve them. Everything should be electronic, good service, and also, as talked in previous presentation, every information you should access by any device anywhere. So those are like basic hypotheses what the society should look like even today.
So society, from your point of view, is very connected to technology. Aren't we talking about the information and our place in communication and using information itself? Is it the same thing, or it's two different worlds? Is the information society about technology, or is it about change of mind, to be very precise?
I think it's about both. It's not about just technology. Technology is a way to achieve that kind of communication and access to information. I'd say like that.
Well, Andrew, as an association, you represent users in an industry. I believe AIM should have a vision of its role in an information society. What do you think could this vision be?
Yeah, well, we talk about technology, but technology in the human race has always been adapting to solve a particular problem. There's two types of communication. One is for actually interaction, the other one is to actually sell something to somebody. No, we used to walk, then we used the horse, then we used the cart, now we use the car, then we use the plane. Technology is just an enabler for us to do something better. So it's intelligent information management.
But I believe, Andrew, there's a big difference. From a horse, you could fall down and you feel it. With a car, you can drive against the wall and you can feel it. And there have been hundreds of years to develop rules how to deal with horses and cars. But you don't see, you don't feel what information is about, what it does to you, where it is, how it handles yourself. And that could be a very big question. Do we handle information, or does information handle us? What's your opinion, Cheryl?
I think it always starts with people handling information. And, I don't think that the driver for technology has always necessarily been only to solve problems, but also to reach out and connect with other people and communicate, to express ideas. And even just to look at this panel today, I mean, all of us know each other through social media, but many of us are meeting each other for the first time in person here today. Mm-hmm. So I think, the opportunities to use technology, including social tools, is much more than just solving business problems, but being able to expand horizons, share information, and, create networks that are truly global.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Pam, probably it's only a problem of our generation. What do you think about, will the digital native ask these silly questions I will be asking? Will it be for them, just the water they're swimming in? Is it only a problem we discuss?
No, I think it's been a problem for decades, for hundreds and hundreds of years. So we don't want to lose Rich. The problems have existed. It's going to be the same questions we'll be asking them, and I think in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, it's going to be the same thing.
So you think it's not a question of age? Luo, what's your opinion on this?
So I disagree a little bit. I think that most of our behaviors over the last centuries have been shaped by the shortage of information. We always struggle to get another copy of a particular book or get a translation of a particular magazine. It was always shortage of information. I think that for the first time we are coming to an era where there is no shortage of information, and I actually do believe that this deluge of information is shaping the society and is shaping our behavior. I think that we are developing behaviors and beliefs that are different than anything we've ever seen before.
Are we already slaves of information?
I don't think it's slavery. I just think it's a different type of behavior.
But you're very correct. We love cuneiforms and Roman scripts because we have them so rarely. And now we have information everywhere, and I think nobody thinks about the value of information and the role it plays. Because what do you think, Rich? What happens when in the US most of the energy works fail and there's no energy for a week? What happens to the American society then?
Well, it's very interesting changes. And so one of the so I have an idea, and I'm going to try to shape it to answer your question.
You have a battery or what?
No, I don't. I think one of the, as these folks were talking, I think one of the most interesting things is what, right now, predicting the future and so on, what is right now the new, it's a cliche and I apologize, the new normal. So what is a glut of information, decay of privacy, all this, and what is just part of a transitory period where we're going to fix things and go back a little bit to the way we were, to the norms that we were, 10 years ago or so. So one area is energy, another area is privacy and security and so on. So some of the questions are, well, okay.
I make it very clear. What is the larger risk? The spying of NSA or failing of power works? Which is a larger risk to information society? You need not to answer. Has anybody of an idea on this
I
question?
think in your... Oh, I'm sorry. I have an answer.
Do you have an idea?
Yeah. I think, a failure of power, maybe this is a simple answer to the question, but a failure of power is it's unpredictable and catastrophic, and everything has to change in order to fix it and to work around it. NSA spying is, it's more and more predictable, and there are ways to work around. So it's more chronic rather than highly disruptive all at once. So I'm much more optimistic. I'd be much more delighted at NSA spying than at a catastrophic power failure.
Well, there's already articles out which say the NSA crisis has a lot of impact on democracy, for example, and how we deal with our rights and how we deal with information. I ask the question to Lubor. What do you think is more risky to the information society? Well, losing all the power works for a week, or this espionage by NSA or the Russians or by whom else, or Google or whoever?
Yeah. So I actually think that we live in a society that is dependent on technology. And we absolutely, our lives depend on number of grids, right? We depend on the water grid, we depend on the energy grid, we depend on the communication grid. We need those things to function. And any of them failing is catastrophic, and we are building all the safeguards and everything to prevent that. It does happen. I live in California where, once in a while we have no power for 3 days, and it's not good, right?
It's no good.
But we kind of depend on that, and we have to get it going, right? And I think that energy is just as critical as water. I think that the NSA spying, I think that there is much more hype behind it than actual danger, because spying has been always with us. And if we are surprised, it's kind of, like, really, seriously? We have an agency in place whose job it is to spy, and we are surprised that they are spying, right? I may disagree with the fact that they are spying on me, and I may disagree with the fact that we've made it so easy for them, but I don't think it's particularly disruptive to the society, right? It's disruptive to our behaviors in some ways. It's probably disruptive to our conscience about, oh wow, I need to think twice about what I'm putting into the Dropbox folder right now. But it's not killing the society as such.
But let's be honest, our industry didn't take position. We are selling secure storage, secure processes, and nobody raised his hand and said, oh, quietness. In Germany, in the US, everywhere. None of the vendors, none of the association took position to this general question of how we will deal with communication and information in the future. You should think about it, but I want to pick up another of the keywords, the keyword which Pam rose, that was change management. Because change management is one of the important components that we need to adapt to this new environment which we experience. Do you like to use your slides?
I'll make this very, very brief, but in the first two sessions today, we've focused on the future. We've looked at the focus of the workplace. We've looked at the focus of the industry. We've explored a plethora of new technologies that we believe our organizations will need to embrace in order to remain relevant and to maintain a competitive advantage. Well, we can't be 100% sure of the technologies of the future. I mean, who thought BlackBerry would be gone? Be going away as quickly as it is. One thing that we can be sure of is there will be some people who will be overwhelmed by the technologies, and there will be some who will be underwhelmed. And I would not underestimate the future knowledge worker. What we can be sure of is in the future, as it is today, there will be some people who do not like change. And for any new technology initiative to take hold, organizations will have to embrace a change management program. I'm going to reference this slide very quickly, but I'm going to just say something here. Regardless of what you're looking at, if you ask organizations what the barriers are to embracing new technologies, I think you'll always find a good percentage of the time that one of the biggest barriers, as it is in this study, which was on what are your barriers to embracing the paperless office, it's reorienting the staff, it's change management. If you look at item number 4, what is another barrier to the adoption of technology? Convincing management, making the business case. Look at item number 6, convincing legal, compliance, finance, and other department managers that paper-free is okay. These are equally about change management. We live in a time of powerful macroeconomics and regulatory scrutiny. What we need, organizations are going to need to continue to invest in technologies, to cut costs, to improve processes, to exercise greater control over their information assets. But the new technologies will ignite fear in some, and we have to take that into consideration. For users, it's fear of losing their job, it's fear of exposing personal deficiencies. Managers, it's fear of losing resources, it's fear of losing their sphere of influence. For management, it's fear of failure, losing time, money, and market share. Every technology initiative we take, regardless of what it is, what the future holds, organizations will need to underpin them with a change management program. And that very simply is dealing with the people side of the change. With enterprise content management, enterprise information management, it can be very disruptive. There can be a lot of radical changes in the organization. So change management must be a part of the initiative. It needs to begin at the initial formation of the project and continue to the last application. And since with enterprise information management, there's typically a beginning, a middle, but no end, change management will be a continuum. It needs to build upon the vision, both the technology vision and the best practice vision. And if organizations, if you as vendors or if you are end users, if you ignore this, it could mean outright failure, if not just severe adoption pains with whatever the new technologies of the future are. Very quickly, I'm going to suggest there's many methodologies for change management. The one that I absolutely love the most is defined by a gentleman by the name of John Cotter in his book, Leading Change, because it puts a very strong emphasis on the need for leadership in order to make change happen. He identifies 8 steps: creating urgencies, forming a powerful coalition, creating a vision for the organization and the future state, communicating that vision, removing obstacles by overcoming a lot of the standard barriers, which are skills, structures, systems, and supervisors, and then creating short-term wins. This is something that our industry has been very successful with. We know how to do the short-term wins that have proof of concept and show the return on the investment. Then leveraging that to build on the change, and then maintaining the momentum and going on to address other phases within the change initiative. So just some of the things. Don't underestimate the importance of the people aspect. We talked about the end user, but we must embrace whenever there's change, it's going to ignite fear, and we need to embrace it.
Pam, stay with me. You can organize change in an organization which has structure. You can organize change when you're introducing an information system. But if you look on the information society and, for example, what happened in Egypt, we had a revolution in Egypt driven by technology. Everybody uses them, but society was not too fit to really leverage the outcome. So how can we initiate change management on a society level if we don't manage it even in a company level?
Well, you've got to make the participants a part of the change. You've got to make them want it to be part of their change. That's what the vision is all about, and making them feel a part of the vision and communicating the vision and allowing them to be a part of deciding where the future is. And that's an interesting point about Egypt, because they did choose what they wanted in the future, and then they got it and it wasn't what they wanted. So that's kind of contradictory.
Yes. We enabled them with technology to change, but they changed to somewhere where they don't want it to be.
They got what they asked for, and then they weren't willing to accept what they got and make it work. They didn't give it enough time.
Question to all. Do we have a chance on a global and social and society level to initiate change, or do we have to wait that it just happens? What's your opinion? Must we really work for change, or will it happen? Well, Cheryl, what's your opinion on this?
I think individuals absolutely need to work for change, because individual perspectives really are the only buffer or counterweight to some of the other pressures that we see from political or corporate systems. So, I think a healthy society that respects democratic principles needs that healthy balance of the three, institutions, private sector, and individual wants and needs. Where things fall out of balance, I think, is where we run into dangerous situations.
Mm-hmm. On your list of safe bets and long shots, is there the term change? Should we check with your slides?
Do a search on my slide
Use the microphone, please.
deck. Do a
Rich.
search on my slide deck. You will not find the word change. No, to answer your question just now, I would say you can make change. One thing you can do is just increase the odds of what you want to happen by producing enabling conditions, reducing a lot of the obstacles. And if you're lucky, it may tip over, and what you want to happen, that will happen. Second thing you can do is you can make change in a localized area of what you're interested in. Make that happen, and maybe that can spread. But big change is very difficult. So I don't know if you folks know it, but there's a game called Boggle, and the idea of Boggle is that it's a word choice game. You got cubes with letters on them. And you try to make words out of the game pieces, and you get points if the words you make are different than the other players. So what I tried to do, I didn't know who else was doing other presentations and such, but a lot of predictions have been made by Gartner and Forrester and others across the board, IBM, and so I tried to do things that would get me points in Boggle, a little bit different, and ones that interested me. I don't know if they're interesting to you. But I broke it out into predictions about technology, opportunities, and threats. And these are, some of them are a little bit goofy and kind of off topic, but they all have little lessons. I don't know. The first one is USSD for finance. None of these are original with me particularly, but
What is USSD?
I'm going to explain that. One of the things we've all been talking about up here is the phenomenal SOE, systems of engagement, that help empower folks across the world. And in the ECM-related technologies, it's been amazing because folks in some of the developing worlds can now participate in business processes and get training and so on with phones, which they weren't able to do with the big, hairy client-server systems or even the networked systems using IBM and OpenText and so on. They now can get that in M files on mobile devices. But even that, and even providing Box and Dropbox and so on, is very difficult for the 5 billion, for the folks who are under $2,000, whatever, 3,000 euros per year, 1.75 euros per year. And so USSD uses just the characters, numbers, and so on for doing, you type in like a phone number to do financial transactions and other types of applications. So it's very lowest common denominator system of engagement. It's not as sexy as this with the interfaces and such, but it works in poorer areas. It's solutions like this that I'm very interested in, and maybe these are some of the things that Document Boss might be interested in too, for hitting the 5 billion folks who are at the very so-called bottom, the base of the pyramid of folks who are getting introduced to new technologies. So that's one trend that I'm looking at. I just picked USSD as maybe the most interesting example of that. Second and third have to do with, particularly, they're both technology problems and social problems. Really, social power is it's a technology problem because the systems in production today are extremely inefficient and don't do the job for being a major power source. You were talking about power just a few moments ago. But there are advances where today we're making progress, and so we're on the cusp of that. Self-driving cars is both technology and social. Really, railroads have never taken off in the U.S. really in the way they have here and in Asia, just because it's a culture of highways and cars and so on. There's a possibility with what Google is doing and so on that we'll give up some of our control and give them to the machine, if not to a centralized railroad track, and it'll happen. It'll happen sooner in Europe than it will here. And pertaining to NSI and privacy, there are some really interesting things happening with social media and other forms of systems of engagement that can reduce the impact of NSA-type spying. So in social media, that's just one example where the technology is getting there to be able to provide folks with more privacy. So this is a case where is it right now with NSA and so on, is this just is this going to be the new normal, or is this a transitory period, and that 5 years, 15 years from now, we actually are going to enjoy some of the privacy we had 10 years ago? That's very interesting, so I'm watching that very closely. Very quickly, I'm just going to touch on this. If you think of the users of technology as being a pyramid, women are half of that, more than half of that in many cases. So that's going to have an extreme impact, not only in the consumer world, but also in the business technology. I'm going to strip down. Some of these are geeky personal interests of mine and should be of interest to the vendors there, because they will have impact on supply chains and so on and the kinds of business applications they're pursuing. But basically, one trend is your businesses will have to report on more and more of the supply chain externalities. In human language, that means that today they have to report on, say, carbon footprint impact and so on, but more and more it's going to be like food labeling, where they'll have to report on labor impact and so on. Base of the impact, I already talked about that. I won't talk about that. I think the most important, we've already talked about security, so I'm whittling away at this. Last thing is huge impact of nature and how that will have an impact, not just on power impacts, but also on politics and society and so on. So just after I submitted this presentation, Tom Friedman, the New York Times, had a column about how so much now Iran and Egypt, the situation is so much different than 1979, not only because of the doubling of population, but because of the huge environmental pressures they're under. Iran's water is dying, and they're going to be dry. Egypt is becoming a salt marsh, and so they're both under incredible pressure for what's going to happen. So and those are just two cases. So those are nature is going to have a huge disruptive effect on the technologies and how societies are done in the next 25 years. I'm done. Do you have any questions?
That's new. Thank you. Gerd, probably you can answer one question. This industry is producing all this technology and functionality. What is their responsibility to the information society? Are they aware of this responsibility?
Easy answer is probably no. What I like about Richard's presentation is a clear question to say we need more technology, we need more disruptive breakthrough type of technologies. When I listened to the previous session which we had this morning, it was quite clear by all the people here on the panel, we have all the technology to go paperless whatsoever. It still doesn't happen. Why? Because we also need to look at the behavioral changes of the people. If we look at people and look at ourselves, we all still use paper. There was a comment that this has to do with age. I don't believe that it is down to age. I mean, if I look at my son, he's studying philosophy, and how much paper he is still printing while he's using all the sorts of social media, I believe we need even much more technology in electronifying the things we use today. Even paper has to become electronic. What Richard said about we need to have all the information at the place where we are, with Google Glass in our cars, with search capabilities that know and understand what sort of information snack we want to use at a particular point in time. And therefore, we need to press the button to go forward in technology.
Gerd, coming back to my question, does the industry knows about the responsibility of what they are doing with all this communication, information stuff in regard to the society? Or do you want to answer?
Well, I think it's interesting because I don't think we're lacking for technology, but we're sitting on mounds of content and data in many public sector and also private sector institutions. And, we are seeing a rise of a lot of open data movements in many governments worldwide. But, how are we actually looking at intelligently aggregating that data from region to region, or combining public sector open data with private sector open data? So I think this opportunity for opening up, licensing, sharing, not just the technology, but the data and content behind it is an opportunity that really remains untouched.
I believe the industry should have some responsibility producing all these information technologies, because they form the information society. And on a philosophical level, they leave us unsatisfied. They provide tools, and from the society viewpoint, we don't know what to do with these. And the last slide deck is for Luo. I give you 3 minutes to focus on the most important points.
A topic that I like to write about a lot and think about a lot, and here is a slide that is a provocation, right? The future president of the United States is on Facebook today, and the point is that we are actually growing into a society where our lives are much more documented as ever been before. And as you probably know, to win an election today, whether it's in US or Canada or Germany, you have to be really boring, not done anything exciting in your entire life, because as soon as you've done something exciting, people start digging into that. And that exciting thing might be you might have 3 Purple Hearts for bravery from a war, and people start questioning whether those are real, right? And you end up losing election because of that. Why don't we think about 20 years from now, and let's flip it around, and we will be in a world where actually nobody will be boring, because everybody's life will be perfectly documented. I mean, already today there is so much of what we have done in the last 10 years so well documented that we can look you up and we can see what have you accomplished in your academic career, in your professional career. If you have particular hobbies, you are probably available. We can look you up, and so 20 years from now, it will be not just the last 10 years for everybody, it will be, the entire life for most of the population of this planet. And so this whole character debate that we are engaging in today will actually probably go away, or it will change in a very radical fashion, because we will not be looking for that one slip that you have done 20 years ago. Everybody will have a whole bunch of things that you have done, and we all make mistakes, and we all are human, and so it will be kind of a level set. So I think that will be interesting. I'm going to skip over this one. Tracking. So NSA seems to be spooking a lot of Germans. Americans kind of, got wound up about it for about 2 weeks, and now they moved on to the, quality of life and kind of ignoring a little bit the fact that the state is watching them. And if you are living under an illusion, there is a GPS chip in every mobile phone that is under power even if the phone is turned off. And the agencies, whether it's the NSA or the German Nachrichtendienst, they actually have the power to track that chip at all times, right? So in movies they actually have to take the battery out in order to make it not traceable. So we are already being tracked, whether you realize it or not, and it's going to get only worse. Now, I believe that security is kind of an interesting topic, and what Apple has done by putting a fingerprint sensor on a mobile device is potentially the start of a complete shift in our security behaviors. I made a point earlier this morning that right now our security models are still trust-based security, right? We actually don't control anything at any time, but
the German Chaos Computer Club hacked this last week.
I know, but they also announced that actually they think it's a good technology. So give Apple a chance, all right? That will be a 2.0 version. Basically, we can only solve it if security is omnipresent. That at any point of time, we can verify that the right person is checking the right piece of information. We are very far away from that, but this is where we have to head. And it kind of begs another question, right? Are we going to get chipped? Are we going to get a chip implanted that actually will be able to track us at all times? We've all seen some of the science fiction movies, Minority Reports, those kind of things. We all think it's scary, but in reality, we are doing it voluntarily in many occasions already today. EU passports have a chip implanted in them. If you have a passport on you, again, the devices can read your data right now as you are carrying it. We are voluntarily submitting a lot of our personal information to the government agencies to facilitate an easy border crossings, right? So the global entry systems and nexus systems and so on. It's convenience, and that's actually what seems to be winning over everything else. We actually like the convenience. We hate traffic. We hate being stuck in lines. We have to wait for goods. We want things right away. The convenience is so much more important than anything else that we will actually, in our society, completely shift our perceptions and attitudes, and we are willing to give up quite a bit, which may sound horrible. And it's not necessarily all bad news, right? So think about that. If we solve the security problem, that would be huge. We could significantly improve the safety, whether it's safety of the state, safety of the office, or of whatever restricted areas. There's all these Amber Alerts. I don't know if that exists in Europe, but if a child gets kidnapped or something, you have Amber Alerts. So there are big signs everywhere that actually say that there is a kidnapping. Well, if we can actually track the child at any given time, that would go away, right? You just look them up. Where's the kid? And it's easy. So there's a lot of benefits that could come out of this. And I see that Dr. Kampfmeyer is already behind me, so my 3 minutes must be over.
Your time has been over. Yes. Thank you for some of the visions. All the slide decks will be available on the internet. Unfortunately, our time has run out. I think we covered quite a lot. I hope everybody enjoyed it, not only you, but as well my participants. And you already learned the lesson with the final statement, and I make it very easy for you. I want to know from you in one sentence, what do you personally expect from the information society, with only one dot, 3 commas and 3 ends. And Andrew starts.
What I really want from the information society is for the technologists and vendors of the world to understand what the users want much more clearly and start listening to them.
I'd wish for easy access for any information, regardless if it's business information or something in the government.
To think more out of the box and increase the pace of innovation.
To see more transparency in what happens with the information we give up to trade convenience for, or privacy for convenience.
I expect that we all will have to learn how to deal with some of the impact that all this information has upon us, and that today we don't really know what that is.
To put a much, much greater emphasis on the user today and the end user of the future.
I strongly believe in privacy and so on, and so I expect that I hope that this is a transitory period and that we can. Oh, geez, I went over my time.
No problem. Thank you, everybody. Well, really a great round here. Finland, Canada, US, Netherlands, England, and even somebody from Germany trying to get some experience with this bad English. I really want to thank you for coming over. And when we do this again next year, who of you would be interested to join in again? Raise your hand. Oh God, how do I get new people on the panel? Schönen Tag noch auf der DMS Expo. Thank you and enjoy the fair.